Dragon Ball is one of the longest running and most beloved manga series in existence, and its characters are so recognizable and popular that they're embedded in mainstream cultures across the globe. From the page to animes to movies and of course video games, the exploits of Goku, Vegeta and crucially everyone's low-key best boy Krillin have entertained the world for years. However, as you can probably imagine, for a series that's been going on as long as it has, there have obviously been some low points in the series. Cough cough, Garlic Jr. And therefore the franchise is all too familiar with the stink of failure when it comes to some of the video games it has under its belt. The titles on this list wouldn't even make it through to the qualifying rounds of the Cell games and are more embarrassing than Majin Buu's excuses for missing the Tournament of Power. Side note, he overslept. So let's take a look at some titles that couldn't even take on the Pilaf gang and come out the other side victorious. As I'm Jules, this is WhatCulture.com, and these are 10 Dragon Ball games so bad that they insult the fan base. Number 10, Dragon Ball Z for KINECT. Right, listen, it's time for some real talk. As a Dragon Ball fan, at some point in your life, we have all stood in our kitchens and pretended to shoot a Kamehameha at a toaster in order to make it pop. This is a fact, because deep down we all wish to be one of these legendary fighters and act out their over-the-top moves. So of course, when it was announced that Dragon Ball Z was getting a KINECT game which promised it would allow us to recreate these moves and batter piss out of opponents, the fan base was sent into a meltdown. Hell, the graphics also looked kind of decent, full of colour and character. However, things took an absolute nosedive when it came to actually playing the game, as the Kinect could barely register that we were in the bloody room, let alone the flurry of kicks and punches that we were trying to lash out. The result was a game that made you look like you had lead weights tied to your wrists and had just woken up from a coma. Not that the AI minded at all, because it was programmed to take more of a beating than Piccolo's dreams of being taken seriously as a fighter once the boys went beyond Super Saiyan 2. Leave it in the bargain bin. Number 9, Dragon Ball Z Sagas. Poor old Xbox players, this was their first Dragon Ball Z experience on their console, and what an absolute stinker to open with. Saga is a game that had a ton of promise, offering players a chance to mix up their fighting styles in an effort to not just become yet another button-mashing brawler. However, that's exactly what it ended up being, thanks to an absolutely abysmal implementation of the fighting mechanics. It was very possible, and often quite likely, through no fault of the player, to stun-lock your opponents with simple kicks and punches. Even the bosses of this game would fall foul of this, making some of the most epic moments of the series feel like an utter joke. Topping this all off was a truly horrendous collectible system that highlighted the shortcomings of the level design and how you traverse it. You see, you could only fly on a horizontal plane with no deviation up or down, meaning that if you spied a Z coin and you fancy a chance at trying to collect it, you'd have to jump up or off a ledge at precisely the right height of the coin and then fly back to grab it. I have had more fun watching Yamcha die than play this game. Number 8, Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku. Now at first it might seem pretty harsh to put this GBA RPG title on the worst of list, but hear me out, because while you might be initially impressed with the cutesy graphics and setting of Legacy of Goku, you'll soon find that this is just a shallow experience nearly devoid of any charm come the end of its short runtime. Now in the anime series there were a fair few filler episodes, where the plot took a day off from events and just coasted along enjoying the scenery. Legacy of Goku is that in video game form, clocking in at just over 4 hours playtime in total while retaining a full-priced release. Now things wouldn't be so bad if the gameplay itself held up, but thanks to some really dodgy hit detection and lackluster fighting mechanics, you never truly felt like the Saiyan of legend, especially when you died to something as pathetic as a tiny crab. In fact, many players were forced to cheese the fighting system in order to win by using key attacks, backing off and then recharging, and then repeating. How does a game based on a fighting-centric manga mess up this bad? Avoid this entry and play the far superior Legacy of Goku 2 if you want a decent DBZ RPG GBA experience. My god, that was a sentence. Number 7, Dragon Ball Evolution. When you're basing a video game off of a film that fans earmarked as terrible from the moment the first trailer dropped, you know you're in for a bad time. And still, somehow, Dragon Ball Evolution's PSP video game is even worse. How is this even possible? Well, by taking the much respected rules that most fighting games have have to follow to be successful and throwing them out of the bloody window. Gone is having to learn intrinsic combos and balancing offense and defense, because if you're playing against the AI in this game, you can literally spam a light or heavy kick and win. They will simply just keep flying into your fists, and it is embarrassing. The animation style of this game is enough to give you motion sickness as the characters move at a lightning pace, causing the camera to have a heart attack as it attempts to keep up. The result is a game that appears like it's trying to dangle keys in front of a baby in order to entertain them with lights and sounds, but only ends up making us feel very ill. Avoid this at all costs. Number 6, Dragon Ball Z Battle of Z. Now, I feel personally conflicted ragging on a game that was actually our first digital introduction to this supreme king of banter that is Whis, but Battle of Z was just too full of issues and so light on the ground when it came to content that it makes the entire experience feel torturous to play. Now, what Fight for Z did have, though, was aspirations. The game wanted to throw everything at the wall and see what stuck. However, the problem with this is actually glaringly obvious. With so many new mechanics, including a team battle focus, different fighting styles to master, character customization, and a bevy of online multiplayer modes, it was all too much for any one particular aspect to feel fleshed out. The online connection was patchy at best, making entire sections of the game feel barren mere weeks after launch. The story was a convoluted mess, with dead characters somehow ignoring their fates, and the combat, while offering tons of different options, boiled down to just a few easily spammable moves for some characters, creating a huge imbalance in the process. And imbalance is exactly what every decent fighting game should try to avoid. Number 5, Dragon Ball GT Final Bout. Now, the warning signs concerning the quality of this title are pretty apparent the moment that you find out that this game actually has very little to do with the GT aspect of the series. I mean, sure, most of the characters make an appearance, but so do tons of familiar faces from other arcs, making you painfully aware that this title was just trying to cash in on the, at the time, hottest aspect of the franchise. And things don't fare much better when you finally begin playing Final Bout, as the sluggish controls hamper the gameplay at every turn. If you were to even glimpse at the anime, you'd know that the battles consist of warriors moving around at lightning speed. However, here you'd more often than not be rooted to the ground in a power struggle or fail to move out of the way of projectiles thanks to a system that I swear has input lag, which is pretty much the death knell for any fighting game. Also, Goku's spin kick attack can just be spammed so that you can beat every boss in mere seconds. And trust me, you will want to speed through this because my god is this game laborious. In short, Final Bout never even made it close to the goddamn ring. Number 4, Dragon Power. Now, you might look at this and mutter to yourself, "This is no Dragon Ball game, Jules, you cue ball, what the hell are you playing at?" Well, my friends, Dragon Power, as we know it in the West, was a very different game to that which released in Japan. In its homeland, Dragon Power, or Dragon Ball Shenron no Natsu as it was known, was indeed a fully licensed Dragon Ball game which was changed in the port. But why was it altered so much? Well, according to the IP holders at the time, it was because they weren't sure a Dragon Ball game would sell well in the West, as the Goku hype hadn't really hit just yet. No, instead they were going to let the game sell itself with its awful controls, ugly graphics, and confusing gameplay that offered incredibly on-the-nose direction of what you needed to do, but never how to do it. As you can imagine, what we ended up with was a mishmash of gameplay that felt like a cheap clone of The Legend of Zelda at best, and a terrible Dragon Ball game at worst. Number 3, Dragon Ball Z GOKU HISHOUDEN. When you think of Dragon Ball, you likely think of battles that could rip a planet in half, of power levels that your scouter shrivels at even just thinking about, and of final forms more terrifying than when you're 3 years deep into a relationship and your partner finally mentions that they really hate Power Rangers. I know. However, you likely don't think of chess and visual novels, and yet that's exactly what this game delivers in full. This odd request fulfillment of a title is unlike anything I've ever played before, and that's not a good thing. For while I acknowledge that the limited hardware of the Game Boy meant that the epic battles were just out of the question, the concept of stacking up attacks before a fight and then just letting them play out like Football Manager is the ultimate way to kill my enthusiasm. Now, don't get me wrong, there is a deeper combat mode on offer here than most other titles, but it's needlessly complex, and the battles you take part in are the sole highlight in a title that rushes through every bit of narrative it has like it's unconfident in telling the Frieza arc. And when you consider that that is one of the most beloved arcs, and say it with me kids, of all time, that is not a good thing. Number 2, Dragon Ball Z TAIKETSU. Ooh, I don't even know how to begin describing how ugly this game looks. Did the developers of Webfoot Technologies even look at the characters they were basing their sprites off of, or even know how bipedal life forms are meant to stand? It looks like the cast are dealing with a muscle wasting condition and a bad back all at once. But ugly graphics aside, TAIKETSU is one of the most primitive fighting games I've ever played, and that is in no way a compliment. The animations feel so stiff that it's impossible to convey any sense of weight from the attacks you're attempting to dish out, and the super moves look so lackluster that it's honestly hilarious to watch the likes of Perfect Cell fire out a beam thinner than Yamcha's usefulness in the anime. This game came out the same year as Budokai 2 did, and looking at these two side by side was just humiliating for this handheld fighting game. Now true, it was on inferior hardware, but in every aspect it was also an inferior game. And number 1, Dragon Ball Z Ultimate Battle 22. Ultimate Battle 22 might well be the ultimate worst fighting game in the entire Dragon Ball library, as nearly everything about it seems designed to incite rage from within the fanbase. For a start, this game is easily one of the ugliest looking titles I've seen on the PS1, with sluggish animations and moves that cut so many corners that it's jarring to say the least. In some instances, fighters perform combos with no lead-in animations whatsoever, making it impossible to actually predict when to block, which, as you might expect, results in a terribly imbalanced multiplayer experience. Even when you're the one dishing out the punishment, things feel archaic and imprecise. It's like your button presses are influencing somebody else playing the game rather than you directly being in control. It is genuinely awful. Worse still, one of the actual nice touches is completely absent in the US and European release, in that the short animated cutscenes that occur before battles on the Japanese version were cut entirely in the port. And when your biggest selling point is the fact that you've got 22 characters to choose from, well, you know you're in for a terrible time. And there we go, my friends. Those were 10 Dragon Ball games so bad they insult the fan base. I hope you enjoyed that, and please let me know what you thought about it down in the comment section below, as well as any other games that you would have added to this list. If you want to chat to me further, you can do so over on Twitter at RetroJ0, or you can swing by Live and Let's Dice, where I stream every Wednesday and Sunday. But before I go, I just want to say one thing. We spoke today about Dragon Ball video games that insulted the fanbase, but you know what, my friends? I'm not going to insult you. I wish nothing but the best for you, because you are an absolute ledge. You deserve love, happiness, and success, and you hopefully won't need a Dragon Ball collection in order to wish for that to happen. Because if you look around, friends, family, professionals in the support industry, these people care about you and want you to do well. Now go out there, power up to over 9,000, and absolutely smash it, you massive ledge. As always, I've been Jules, you have been awesome. Never forget that, and I'll speak to you soon. Bye.